All right, let's just jump right in. Today, we're diving into an explainer on something that literally makes or breaks daily operations. But honestly, it rarely gets the spotlight it deserves. We're talking about strategic craft allocation. We're going to break down exactly how operational planning directly impacts scheduling efficiency out there on the ground. And we're going to do it by looking at a tale of two very different scenarios. It's a pretty fascinating look at how just a few slight shifts in perspective at a planner's desk can completely transform a crew's entire day. So, think about this for a second. How do you schedule the impossible? If you've ever been in any sort of leadership role, you know exactly this feeling. You're a supervisor, you've got this massive backlog of jobs just staring you down. And when you look at the math on your available labor, well, it just doesn't add up. You have way more work than you have people, or at least so it appears on paper. To see exactly how this happens, let's meet our crew supervisor, James. Now, James has a specific set of puzzle pieces to work with for the day. It's a solid crew. He's got 2 certified welders, 3 mechanics, 1 electrician, and 3 mechanical apprentices. That is his entire resource pool, the whole shebang. Every single job that comes his way has to be solved using exactly this combination of people. Keep this crew in the back of your mind because, well, James is about to have a really rough morning.
Which brings us to Section 1, the rigid planning trap. Let's look at what happens when limits are just a bit too strict.
Watch how fast things spiral out of control here. Paul, the planner, lined up 5 jobs before his morning break. If we walk through his plan, you'll immediately notice the constant, heavy demand for top-tier skills. Whether it's a high-pressure steam valve or, honestly, just replacing a simple check valve, Paul is demanding pairs of certified welders or pairs of mechanics for hours on end. Basically, every single task demands specialized technicians. Before Paul even finishes his morning coffee, he runs the math on that schedule. 64. He has planned 64 labor hours worth of work for just these 5 jobs alone. Instantly, Paul has created a massive operational bottleneck, and he's done it entirely on paper. And here is the real-world consequence of that 64-hour number. When James gets this schedule, he's completely handcuffed. Remember his crew? He only has 2 certified welders total. But Paul's rigid plan calls for multiple pairs of them simultaneously. There's just way too much welder work, leaving James totally stuck. This essentially forces our supervisor to throw the whole plan right out the window. He has to second-guess the planner and blindly use his apprentice mechanics for some of the mechanic work just to try and survive the shift. In this scenario, the plan didn't actually help James. It completely hindered him. So, is there a better way? Section 2, the flexible planning solution. To see how this works, let's rewind the tape to that exact same morning with the exact same jobs and see how things brilliantly shift when Paul takes a totally different approach. The crucial point here is a new strategy. Instead of asking what is the absolute best possible skill combination for this job, Paul asks what is the minimum skill requirement. This means planning a job based on the lowest acceptable qualification needed to safely and effectively complete the task. Often, this just involves pairing one highly skilled technician with a helper or apprentice, rather than, tying up 2 of your absolute top-tier specialists on a single task. Contrast this revised plan with the first one. Instead of demanding 2 welders for the steam valve, it's just 1, paired with a helper. Paul realizes the workbench? That's really just light welding, so a single mechanic and a helper take that over. Moving oil? A single helper with a forklift knocks it right out in 2 hours. The check valve needs 1 welder and a helper, and that leaking control valve needs 1 mechanic and a helper. By utilizing helpers across the board, Paul immediately takes that immense pressure right off the specialists. And look at the result of that simple shift in perspective. 44 planned labor hours. That is a dramatic reduction from 64 down to 44. And keep in mind, Paul didn't change the actual mechanical work that needed to be done. The physical jobs are exactly the same. All he did was adjust the skill requirements to accurately reflect what was actually necessary to complete the tasks safely. This brilliantly illustrates what happens on the ground when the plan is actually flexible. James gets this new plan, and suddenly he's empowered. Because the plan utilizes helpers, he knows exactly when apprentices can be sent on jobs. He pairs 1 certified welder with an apprentice, and boom, they knock out both the high-pressure steam valve and the check valve in a single day. He assigns a mechanic and an apprentice to the workbench, which, as an added bonus, helps maintain the mechanic's light welding skills. And my absolute favorite part of this whole thing, after assigning everything, James realized there was no electrical work for the day. So he creatively deploys his electrician as a helper to the mechanic on that critical control valve. Every single person is utilized, and the backlog gets completely crushed.
Section 3, the power of flexibility.
Let's zoom out from Paul and James for a second. What we just saw isn't just some lucky break. It's actually a foundational rule of maintenance operations drawn right from our source text. When you contrast these two philosophies side by side, the picture becomes incredibly clear. Unduly restricting skills by demanding top-tier talent for every single step of a job, that creates an operational straitjacket. It creates these artificial bottlenecks where you look like you're out of labor when you really aren't. On the flip side, planning for the minimum skill level creates a flexible roadmap. It unlocks your workforce's full potential, giving supervisors the freedom to move the pieces around the board exactly where they're most needed. The source material actually summarizes this perfectly. It says, a job plan tells how many persons the crew requires and the minimum skill level. By not unduly restricting the skill requirements, the planner increases the maintenance crew's flexibility for using different persons for the work. So the true function of the planning phase isn't to micromanage the exact names on the roster. It's simply to provide the requirements. It's the flexibility built into those requirements that actually unlocks the execution on the floor. As we wrap up this explainer, I want you to think about your own workplace processes for a minute. When you map out your day, are you defaulting to asking for the absolute highest level of skill just to be totally safe? The next time you sit down and outline a project schedule, you really have to ask yourself, are you handing your team a straitjacket or a roadmap to soaring efficiency?